everyone. Welcome to Pen Connect, Penmancy's unique venture where we try to bring in authors closer to their readers. We have another amazing conversation in store for all of you tonight, and I'll be introducing our guest for tonight with everybody once people start joining in. If my video is lagging, please everybody just excuse my video and just listen to my voice, which is what I was telling Smita earlier. All right, Smita, welcome to Penmancy, welcome to Pen Connect. It is such a pleasure having you here, and I'm so
Thank,
excited to talk about your book. Yes.
thank you, Monica. And welcome to Pen Connect, I can understand, but welcome to Penmancy nahi bolo. I think it's been 2 years since I am a member. So I would just say thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Yes. Smita needs no introduction for everybody who has been on Penmancy for quite a few years because Smita is one of our superstar writers. So, yes, but for those who have joined us very recently, I will go ahead and give a small introduction of our guest for tonight for everybody. Smita Das Jain is a writer by passion who writes every day. Her debut short story collection, A Slice of Life, was named among India's top three fiction works by Writefluence. Her debut novel, A Price to Love, found a mention in Daily Wire's top 50 books of 2022. She is also the first prize winner of the prestigious Bharat Award for Literature 2023 for her short story Purchase Love, which is incidentally a part of this book, and it is so amazing. And the only Asian to be named in the top 20 flash fiction winners list in the spring 2022 contest of the prestigious US based Women Earn Writing magazine for women writers. Smita's award winning short stories have found prominence in several national and international anthologies around the globe. She was also a finalist for Women's Web Orange Flower Awards 22 and 23 and Influence Beyond Motherhood Awards 23 for her writing. Outside the world of writing, Smita is an executive coach and personal empowerment life coach, enabling people to do what they do, but a little bit better. She is also a TEDx speaker, a keynote speaker, and at prestigious corporate conferences, and a guest columnist on personal development matters on leading magazines and platforms. Smita lives with her rockstar husband and adorable 13-year-old daughter in Gurugram, India. All right. Well, Smita, you started your writing journey with a short story collection, A Slice of Life, and now here you are again with a short story collection. How does it feel?
Okay, so incidentally today only I was speaking to someone and that person asked me a question and I told her that okay, when I penned A Slice of Life 2 years ago, if somebody would have told me you would have third book out by 2023 before 2 years are up, I would have like, okay, go and take a hike. We are just making me dream so much. So if I look back at that, I feel a sort of satisfaction in terms of the consistency. That okay, I've
Right.
made a beginning, and it's only in April 2021 that I started writing full fledged. And to come up with one book, then another, then a third one. So it's important as a coach. I tell all my clients it's important to pat yourself on your back for your achievements. So I look
Absolutely.
back at this consistent journey with a sense of satisfaction that I didn't stop at the beginning and I went
Right.
forward and built on that. So yeah.
Absolutely. A huge pat on the back for you because consistency for writers is very important. And with the rate that you are churning out books, I'm sure we'll have another one before 2023 ends.
No, that is not my target. As in definitely not published. But yeah, writing is already done, so that I can say, but not
I knew it. So 2024, yay, go 2024.
let's see. Now from there on, publishing is the decision of the publisher. So that is out of my hands. So
Right,
let's see.
right, right. All right, so let's talk about Twisted Tales and Turns, guys. This is the book, and it is a short story collection. For those of you who are yet to pick up this book, I'll tell you it consists of 20 short stories divided into 4 parts, which are titled Out of the World, Not Too Far into the Future, All Doesn't End Well, and Love Comes in All Hues. And every section has 5 stories which fit the overarching theme, and there's a delightful blend of genres. You have sci-fi, fantasy, supernatural, drama, romance. Everything is there. So yes, you definitely need to pick this book up if you are in the mood to read short stories. All of those stories are packed with a powerful twist, which we will be talking about a little later. First, I want to talk to you about this book, Smita. How did this book come about? How, when, and how did you think? Okay, now it is time again for a short story collection.
Okay, so uh, okay, when it was time, I always knew after Prize to Love came out last year that it has to be a short story collection this year if I were to keep with my target of one book every year, because the amount of time I wanted to spend on my next one, I thought it will take me more time, so it will not be ready by 2023.
Right.
And okay, and short story collection, because I write something every day, there are always stories. Okay, I mean, some is published including on Penmancy platform, some have won awards but not out there in the public domain. Purchase Love
Right.
being one example, The Figure in the Charpoy being another example. And there are
Right.
some stories, which are like lying just there in my laptop without having gone anywhere, but I have returned it. So it was easy for me. So I knew that, okay, in 2023, like in October 2022, I knew I was coming up with a short story collection in 2023. That is the first part of your question. Now, okay, after 2 books at that point of time, I realized that in order to come out with something, there always has to be a theme. All the more important in a short story collection, because one, anyway, publishers are a little bit more hesitant for short story collection vis-a-vis a full-fledged novel. So number
Right.
one, it really needed to stand out for a publisher to pick it up.
Right.
I mean, that was my first preference. If that hadn't happened, I would have gone the self-publishing route again. That I went with a slice of life, but I was pretty sure that, okay, the theme needed to stand out. And then I looked at the stories that I had written. I looked at the feedback and what sort of stories resonated the most. And at the beginning of the year, all of us were into chat GPTs and generative AI. A lot of research thing, so I asked a lot of questions of chat GPT. Okay, what does India like to read, and what sort of short stories, our readers' preferences and all that, to see what sort of answers come about. And I also did a little bit of, search on Amazon. Not little bit, quite a lot of it. Like what sort of short stories sell, if at all. I mean, very few short stories sell vis-a-vis novels, if I have to look at it relatively. And then, a thriller is something that definitely, it's something that is selling in India. It is selling all over the world. It's selling in India also, no exception. But then I'm like, okay, so people like thrills, and when they pick up thriller, they will anyway expect thrills. So
Right.
the thing about thriller is there is some, if not in the ending, somewhere along there are twists and turns. So I'm like, okay, why not make a short story collection of that theme, and actually not have any story of the traditional thriller genre in that book. So you pick up thriller,
Oh,
you expect a twist, right? But
right.
first of all, as a writer, I don't think it's necessary that you need to write a thriller to deliver a twist. It can be delivered in any. And I'm
Right.
like,
Right.
okay, let me take that challenge and see what I can come up with. And then I looked at the stories that I had already written. Unfortunately, and that is what I believe, that I had enough stories that were already written, which falls into that category. Some of them I knew were loved. Some of them had won awards. And so I was like, okay. And then 2 3 stories I wrote more, because like I decided, once I looked at the structure and all, it needed to have 20 stories. So I wrote 2 3 more so that I make up that number of 20 and then come out with this book.
Right.
So that is how
Right.
it came out.
And I love this, like, in a way, if you look at it, listening to you, if you look at it, the book itself is a twist. Like, if normally, like you say, that people expect thrillers to have twists, and you wanted none of those kind of predictable thrillers in your book, so the book itself is a twist in a way.
It is that way, it is. But then, I'm sure there are readers who will also think that, hey, it's supposed to be twisted, but there is no thriller traditional, because there are all sorts, right? I
Right,
mean,
right,
see,
right.
the thing with twisted tales and turns, unlike a novel which is of a particular genre, you have a
Right,
more definite target audience. With twisted tales and turns, I wanted to cater to varied reader types. So
right.
that was the thing. So, okay, you love paranormal, here are some stories about paranormal. You love science fiction, here are some stories about science fiction. You are emotional,
Right,
so there are a whole sort of tales about relationships. And
right.
that is what I realized also when I'm looking at the reviews and all. When you go narrow, you are able to satisfy audience more. When you have a wider spectrum, it becomes more difficult, because you're catering to varied tastes, and somewhere while catering to that varied taste, you end up disappointing more people. So I would say, like, we spoke about, last time I had been here, we had spoken about A Price to Love. Now that had polarized people because of the protagonist, but it
Right.
was like, okay, it was like contemporary genre setting against the corporate world, so they picked up the book expecting something, and they largely got what they
Right. Right.
expected. With
Right.
twisted tales and turns, that was not the case, right?
Right.
So while
Right.
I'm fortunate again that most people seem to be loving it, but in terms of the response, I would say, with A Price to Love, I expected the sort of response that came with those who didn't like it so much. In case of TNT, it was a bit of a surprise, and I realized why. And I'm like, okay, so sticking to narrow you are, the better it is.
Right. So we will talk about that. But just one question I want to pitch in right here. We are talking about, the audience for the long form story and the short form story. So when you have had experience with both sorts, you have full length novels and you have short stories. So how would you say, the reception has been for the full length or the short story in both cases, in Slice of Life and TNT? So what is the difference, like, in terms of publishing, in marketing? Do you already have an audience in mind when you are compiling all of these stories? How is it different for the two forms of writing?
Okay, so see, when I write the first draft, I never have an audience in mind, and that was the case of TT&T as
Right,
well. But when, like,
right,
I had all the 20 stories, when I was thinking of, okay, how do I organize it and the order of the stories, it was then that I had an audience in mind. See, the audience is different for a full length and short stories, at least for me. I always write short stories for those people who are, like, in a hurry and who don't have time to invest in a novel. uh, with A Slice of Life, it was a thin book, less than 100 pages, and I deliberately kept it at that way. Now that I am a little more known as an author than I was 2 years ago, I, increased the length of
right,
TT&T. And the audience which loves, which loves the thrills that comes with a fast pace, so a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more experimental, and that is why the different genres. So
right,
the audience will always be different. I mean, someone can read both novel and a short story, but there will be always that exclusivity. The people who read only novels will be always more than people who read short stories. That is a
oh,
fact. And that is why you really need to choose your short stories well, so that overall
right,
it delivers that punch. In case of publishing, see, publishers, as I said, are more cagey with respect to a short story.
right,
I am sure, had I gone up to my publisher first with something like TT&T, he would not have entertained me, because most publishers don't. That's a fact.
right, right,
Because he had, I had came out with A Price to Love, and because he loved it so much, and because the book became successful, So I didn't have to prove my writing credentials or pedigree or even selling credentials.
True,
That is
true.
why they looked at the short story, and after that they evaluated manuscript on its merit. But there
Hmm.
was more discussion, as in, once the publisher decides to go ahead, there are some discussions that happen about the print run and the markets and how
Right,
much do
right.
you expect. And when I said that, okay, TT and TE will sell as much as A Price to Love, or not more, like, I was very sure when he asked me that question. He was surprised and he didn't say it, but I could gauge that he was like, okay, she's very ambitious. But I must say that the book has done really well. It has
It
done really
has.
well. It has.
It
It
has, yes.
has. And my publisher is really happy. And then I am like, okay, I thought after last time, your expectations would have anyway gone up, right? So
Correct.
why are you happy? I mean, wasn't it like a given? I understand you would have been disappointed agar acha nahi karta. But
Uh,
why are you happy? I anyway expected it to do so. It will do well. But he's like, no, I am happy because it was a short story collection. Had it been a novel, my expectation would have been different. But the fact that it is a short story collection and it has gone on, it is doing, not gone on to, it is still doing. It's hardly 2 months old. And it has gone on to do as it has. That's a matter of achievement. That is what he's told me.
Absolutely. And I think it is, a lot to do with the fact that there is this whole variety of stories inside the book. You have science fiction, fantasy, like I said, you have romance, all these genres, and the twist that you have given is delivered like amazingly well. Plus, I think not only do they entertain, they also try to educate, right? I think that was something that I liked really, really well. And for me, my personal favorites, like the whole of science fiction section is my personal favorite because I I
I
encounter
have
very
to stop you there, Monica. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I'm so happy you said that, because you are actually the first person who is saying that. I mean, a lot of people have come and told me, hey, I like the first section. A lot of people have liked the last section. And
okay.
most of, those reviews which have not been 5 stars, the reason they are not 5 star is I could sense that people didn't like the science or didn't connect with the science fiction section as much as they did with the other three. So to
Right,
see
right.
someone in India, abroad people have texted or mailed and say, hey, science fiction I loved. And I'm like, okay, Indian audience seem to have a different taste, which is natural. Okay.
Exactly what I was going to say is that because I encounter very little of science fiction in Indian authors, very, very little. All the science fiction that I have read has always been Western authors. So I was so immensely happy to see science fiction and the way that you have, conjured all of those futuristic elements, the aliens, the war, the missiles and everything. I loved it. It is definitely experimental, obviously, because I think still Indian audience is not that into science fiction as of yet. Mytho fiction, fantasy हो गया ये सब चल रहा है अभी भी. But science fiction Indian audience को थोड़ा सा reluctance है, and I'm so happy that you have experimented with it. It was fabulous. I loved it. I loved it.
Thank you. And I love you for saying that. Okay. Particularly for this section. So thank you.
I loved it. So let's talk about plot twist. You have used the literary device as a literary device in almost all of the stories. So we have a lot of writers over here. Can you shed some light on, how we can include a plot twist in our stories? Like we have your prompt for Hannes and for Quintin. So can you shed some light on that? How do we include it in a story of this length, because it's very short, and do justice to it.
Okay. So, okay, it comes to me naturally because I'm a spontaneous writer, but I will try to put some, what do I call, well articulated gyan to it. See, honestly, uh, when you are writing, okay, uh, especially when you intend to have a twist at the end, like for that, for these QT and hardness prompt, don't write with the end in mind. Like, think about the character, think about the setting, but at least at the start don't give a thought to the end, because that way twist will not be as impactful. For it to be impactful, you should be also surprised that hey, this can also
Ah,
happen. If only
oh,
you are surprised, you will be able to deliver that to the readers. Okay, and that's an honest fact. So if you are specially writing with an intent to have a twist at the end, make sure that you are open-minded about the ending. You don't think about the ending. Think about everything but the ending. And then
okay.
when the story progresses and when of course towards the middle, audience, the readers will think everything is going on a predictable path, and when you are writing it, think, okay, what can I write that the audience does not expect at all? Or they would be like, oh my God, ye kya ho gaya?
Ah,
Okay.
right.
Sometimes, okay, in most of my stories, because I'm a spontaneous writer, I never write with an end in mind. एक दो बार लिखा है, those stories don't come out, so they are not published also. At least I didn't deem it well enough to publish. But the thing is, so मेरे को at some point naturally आ जाता है, hey, ये हो गया, let me turn it that way. And then I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, ये तो मैंने नहीं सोचा था, तो genuinely नहीं सोचा था. And once then I arrive at the ending, which is typically after 2/3 of the story is written, I then go back at the draft stage and see, okay, what are the changes that need to be made that the ending implausible nahi lage. Hey, it should come as a
Ah,
surprise, but it should not come
exactly.
like, "Arey, ye kaise ho gaya?" Right?
हाँ,
And then I go and make those changes. अच्छा ये कैसे हो सकता है? And that happened, like, let's say, in one of the stories, which is like Top of the World, which is the second story in the book. So I was writing, and suddenly एक thought आ गया, hey, ऐसे कर देते हैं with that, the character of the child. And तब तक मैंने भी नहीं सोचा था, genuinely नहीं सोचा था, and then I wrote it. And I'm like, okay, let me go back and see. And then, I actually edited. I mean, I'm talking about the first draft. Any dialogue between, the grandparents or the mother and the child in the time when the father is out there, fighting on the farm.
Hmm.
So then I had
Hmm.
to see कि अच्छा अगर dialogue हो रहा है, then that ending is not possible. So
Hmm.
that is the thing. So no end in mind. Once you have the end, go back in the draft and see कि क्या changes है कि वो ending believable लगे. That's
Exactly.
the only tip.
Right, right. It has to be justifiable. It cannot be just XYZ plot twist डाल दिया और
हाँ.
चले गए. हाँ, it has to be plausible. It has to be justifiable according to the context that you have set.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, right.
So,
So now that we are talking about one more question about flash fiction and short stories, that we have such a limited amount of page space to explore everything in the story. So how would you suggest, like, normally I've come across this feedback from many writers ki there is not enough word limit to for me to explore the character. There's not enough words for me to kind of develop or flesh out the characters as much. So how can we do that in a short story and it doesn't feel as if we have not given enough attention to a character or the plot or whatever? How do we do that in a short story?
see, in that sense, Monica, writing a short story, honestly, I think is more difficult than writing a novel. Okay, as in,
Right.
I'm not talking in terms of, the time spent and the words and all, but ultimately, end result तो वही है that reader को satisfaction आना चाहिए. And it's
हाँ,
easier achieved in a novel because of the space you have vis-a-vis a short story. But then ये भी है, okay, see, you give me 1 hour to speak, it will be easy for me to speak. You tell me to deliver the same message in 5 minutes, I will
हाँ,
prepare more. And that's an honest fact. Okay. In terms of short story, see, because there is a short time, what I have found for readers, it's important for readers to connect. So, as compared to the setting, or even I would say in some cases, even as compared to the plot, you should focus more on the character. And that
right.
is at least what I have done. Like every time I write a short story, which is of course much more than I write a novel. So, my first point of thinking is the character. And I
Right.
am like, okay, setting kuch bhi ho, plot kuch bhi ho, when I am putting my pen to paper, I should be like writing like the character. As in, I'm not in the character's head, I am the character when I'm writing short story. Because
Right.
it's like, as a writer, the more close to the character you are, the more the more the character will connect with the audience. So ये
Right.
plot वगैरह novel में ज़्यादा matter करता है. In a short story, if you don't get the character right, वो connect नहीं करेगा. Okay,
हाँ.
that is the first thing. So focus on that. Second, my next, apart from the character, what I have now as in when I say, I keep on learning every day something new. So for the last 4-5 months, from whatever I have read, whatever courses I am doing on writing, I've also, realized that engaging the putting all the five senses into use is important, and it's even more important in a short story because the length कम होता है. So
हाँ.
character
हाँ.
पे focus करो and make sure that ठीक है, even if you're writing only about one night, make sure you are engaging all the five senses of the readers. So something should be about the smell, something should be about the sight, something should be about the taste through the
Right.
descriptions or dialogues that you are using. जितना
Right.
रीडर्स इमर्स होंगे उतना वो स्टोरी से कनेक्ट करेंगे. And
बराबर.
these two things are the important things. Everything else is important, but I focus on these two, and the rest I sort of let it come to it in its natural course of things.
Right. That makes sense because you have such a limited space to explore everything. You cannot do everything in 3,000 words or 5,000 words. Then you have to focus on characters because I think, yeah, character driven अगर plot रहेगा तो फिर people will be able to connect with those characters more, and it will leave a lasting impact on their minds after they are
Exactly.
done reading.
See,
Right.
people will actually pick up short stories अगर उन्हें कुछ character interesting लगे. I mean, collection तो चलो ठीक है, वो book overall theme होना चाहिए. But I'm saying अगर individual stories देखे, it is because of the character. Okay, वो plot वगैरह वो novel उसके लिए उठाते हैं. But
Right.
short story they pick because of the characters, and that's a difference I have realized. Like, I mean, with my whatever limited experience I have, but I think that is a key difference between the two.
Right. I totally agree with this because I remember reading Masterpiece, which is there in the book, and I'm so happy it made it into the book. I loved that story so much. I still remember everything about that story when, the first time I read it, and it is only because, those characters, that painting, that artist are so alive in my mind that I couldn't forget it. Right. So if anybody asks me anywhere, रात को 2 o'clock, somebody is asking me, स्मिता दास जैन ने क्या लिखा है? Masterpiece. That's it.
Well, that's a good title to remember, Masterpiece.
Yeah, so literally Masterpiece ही लिखा है.
Yes.
True.
So,
Okay. So we were talking about how you methodically kind of categorized all of these stories into these four overarching themes. I am wondering if if had you not categorized them, would the impact of the twist have been more? Because now readers know what to expect in that particular section. Okay, I'll get these kind of stories. Do you think would the impact would have been more if you had not categorized it?
I do think so, Monica, and that is in retrospect because had I realized it before, perhaps वो ये structure नहीं होता. तो yes,
हाँ,
definitely because they would not have. फिर पता नहीं चलता ना किस story में क्या है, because once you pick
हाँ,
it out of the world during two stories, then you get to realize the theme. अगर नाम से नहीं guess करोगे, पहले दो stories करोगे हो
हाँ,
जाएगा, which is
right.
true of all the sections. So I do think yes. But at the same time, there is another section of readers because again वो short story का होता है because there is no overarching theme. या तो जैसे आप हर stories romance लिखो तो romance is a binding theme, या हर story
Right.
horror हो तो horror is a binding theme. ये ऐसा नहीं था, right? So I do think there would have been a section of a reader who would have also been कि अरे ये क्या है कि कभी एक story आ रही है, कभी genre change हो रहा है, कभी change हो रहा है. So when I was writing, I thought from that perspective कि ठीक है पहले से section बता दिए, and there are actually people who came and told me अच्छा हुआ पहले से पता है paranormal है, मुझे तो ghost story से डर लगता है, तो मैंने पहला section पूरा ही skip कर दिया, I directly went to the other three sections. तो ऐसे भी हुए. So from
Right.
that perspective, I cater to that audience. But yes, in that sense, to answer your question, शायद twist का impact ज़्यादा ही होता. But yeah, then there will be this other section of the audience which would not have liked it that much. So I don't know किसका पलड़ा भारी है.
Yeah, writer's life is so messed up that you cater to one section, the other section gets annoyed. You cater to them, the other section gets annoyed.
Yeah, that is true. So मेरे पास तो ये काफी है. अच्छा हुआ आपने बता दिया. Especially वो paranormal for, because there are actually people. मैं खुद ही horror movie नहीं देख पाती. और मैंने आज तक कोई horror novel या short story नहीं उठाई होगी.
What?
Seriously, I don't. And that is true of science fiction also. मैंने आज तक कोई science fiction नहीं पढ़ी है. So both these genres are out of my, or rather where, अब तो मैंने काफी stories लिख दी है ये दोनों genres में. But definitely as a reader मेरी कोई learning नहीं है because मैं ये दोनों genres पढ़ती नहीं हूँ. So because I'm horror तो इसलिए because I'm scared basically. तो वही है, मैं movie भी नहीं देखती उसका. In fact my husband puts in, I'm like मैं दूसरे room में ही चली जाती हूँ, मुझे horror नहीं देखनी है जरा सा भी TV में आ रहा है तो. So that sense, I know. So वो section means, वो trigger warning भी था because people came and say, okay, मुझे science fiction अच्छी नहीं लगती, इससे पता चल गया science fiction है, so I skipped that section and went to something else. And that way 2/3 of the book is still catering to that reader जिसको वो at least 1/3 नहीं अच्छा लगा है और the remaining part नहीं अच्छा लगा है. तो हर एक का अपना है. I mean, कौन सी strategy कब काम करे. You can't do all, right? I could not have taken out 2 versions of Twisted Tales.
Obviously, yes. All of the learning, like most of the learning, I think for writers is always in hindsight and always in retrospect. Which brings me to my next question. The book is doing really, really amazingly well. We've garnered more than 100, more than 100 reviews on Amazon. Tell me, what were those reviews like? Good, bad, ugly, or what was your learning from those reviews? Did you learn something new about the book which made you think, oh yeah, this is right?
Okay, so to be exact, अभी book अभी launch हुई है. मैं daily एक बार Amazon जाके check करती हूँ कितने reviews है. So exactly आज के date में 127 reviews है. Okay, and the rating is 4.4, which is better than my other 2 books. So Slice of Life का 4.3 है and A Price to Love का overall 4.2 है. So from that perspective, if I purely look at the number of reviews लगभग उतने हैं and rating ज़्यादा है. So by the numbers, I can say readers are liking it more. Second, कभी-कभी आपको पता चल जाता है instinctively that this will click, right? With A Slice of Life, वो तो खैर मेरी फर्स्ट ही बुक थी, so I didn't know. पहले तो ये था मुझे एक्सेप्ट करेंगे कि नहीं और या कहेंगे कि कैसी ऑथर है, कुछ भी बुक निकाल ली, उसका तो फियर ही अलग था. It was debut. Price to Love was again like a debut novel, first time novel, and it was a traditionally published route, तो उसके pressures दूसरे थे. And यही है कि ठीक है, short story अच्छी लिखी, full length में translate होगा कि नहीं. Plus it was an unusual story with a very unusual, female protagonist. तो उसका ना अलग pressure था. So I was like, click करेगा कि नहीं करेगा. This was one book I was actually never in doubt कि ये, I was very very sure 99.99 कि ये click करेगा. In fact अगर वो नहीं करता मुझे बहुत बड़ा शॉक लग जाता. And ऐसा नहीं हुआ. The thing is, okay, one काफी स्टोरी कंपटीशन में विनिंग्स था एंड देन यू रिफाइन इट फर्दर. फिर आपने एडिटर के साथ डिस्कस किया और रिफाइन हो जाती है. But even before actually I shared it with the publisher, I have a team of beta writers जिन्होंने Slice of Life भी उन्होंने beta read किया था, then Price to Love भी किया था, and उन्हें ये manuscript भी गया at that stage, and all 3 of them came back and told me, Smita, this is your best work till date. As in 3 ज़्यादा नंबर नहीं होता, but 3 इतना कम भी नहीं होता, and उन्होंने हर एक को पढ़ा, and they are like, this is your best till date. And then I send it to the publisher, and as I said, and it's traditional publishing होता ही है, short story, they are more circumspect and for the right reasons, I would say. ठीक है, as in he is like, okay, let me evaluate the manuscript and all, and then within a day, actually Price to Love में लंबा process लगा था between me sending and Readomania accepting. TT&T was like within a day, which was more of a surprise because ये short story collection था. And then I know, like, they really loved A Price to Love because unusual premise and all. But then when Dipankar, who is the head of Readomania, he said, Smita, I think this is better than A Price to Love. And I am like, wow, because I know he really loved A Price to Love. And I'm like, to have him say that for a short story collection, and when he's saying it's better than Price to Love, he really loved Price to Love. So that's, तो उसके बाद तो मेरे को है कि ये हो गया तो and these are people who are reading. My beta readers are professional beta readers, so read कर रहे हैं. Readomania हर साल ही कितनी books निकलता है. I mean, they have a good stable of authors, much more experience and renown than me. So उतना experienced person is saying, hey, आपका first अच्छा था, this is better than that. Then आपको भी थोड़ा हो जाता है कि ठीक है, और readers को भी अच्छा ही लगेगा. And anyway, I have also evolved as a writer during that period. From that perspective, I would say कि while A Slice of Life and Price to Love had exceeded my expectations, ये meet expectations ही है क्योंकि मैं हमेशा से expect कर रही थी ये अच्छा करेगा ही. But it is doing well by God's grace. I am happy with the response. Reviews कैसे हैं and all, see, mostly there are 5 stars वो Amazon बता देगा, जो 5 और 4 almost equally है, 5 थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा है. The one thing which I thought was valid, or rather I realized from the review that Indian audience को science fiction इतना पसंद नहीं है. I really think that maybe उस section की जगह कुछ और section होता, या maybe शायद 15 stories होते. Maybe rating probably 4.4 से ज़्यादा होती. I'm not complaining. 4.4 is a good rating and it's the best. It's my best so far out of the 3. But yeah, I really think, looking at the reviews at least मैं वो 10 और 3-star reviews देखूं out of 127, 10 या 11 3-star है. जिसने भी 3-star दिया है उसने साइंस फिक्शन की वजह से दिया है. Indian audience के लिए at least I would never think of writing a full-fledged science fiction novel if I'm targeting Indian audience. At least मुझे ये learning.
For now, yeah, for now.
For now, 5 साल बाद किसने देखा है? But for now, essentially, and which is good कि short story से पता चला पूरा science fiction novel निकालो and तब वो चले नहीं. That would have been a bigger disappointment. So that is the thing I learned.
Good learning because and obviously there are audience like me who loved the science fiction thing, but yes, in India that section is very, very small who loves science fiction. So good learning.
You are more exclusive, Monica, so you should know that.
Thank you. I agree with your judgment. I am more exclusive.
Yes.
Okay, we have a question from Shashikala ma'am. The title is a little different. Usually it is Twisted Tales or Twists and Turns, but here it is Twisted Tales and Turns. Any reason for turns?
Yes, good question, Shashikala ji. So as I say, I'm a spontaneous writer, but writing के अलावा जो चीज book में जाती है, I plan a lot. So actually, before deciding the title of the book, I did an Amazon search and Twisted Tales भी title था. In fact, A Twist in the Tale भी, which is of my favorite author Jeffrey Archer, वो भी title था. अगर वो title नहीं होता, I would have gone by that. And Turns भी कहीं title थे. So I'm like, सिर्फ Twisted Tales मुझे incomplete लग रहा था. And anyway, 2 words title for a short story collection छोटा होता है. And see, when you are deciding on your title, आपको टाइटल वो रखना चाहिए कि कोई अमेज़न में टाइप करे आप ही की बुक आए, which is super important. Okay, now तो चलो आपको 127 reviews कोई twist टाइप करेगा, I'm sure मेरी ही बुक ऊपर आएगी. But when it was launched तब तो इतने reviews नहीं थे ना, तो आपका टाइटल, if it was a me too like any other, which I learned with A Slice of Life, पहले बुक निकल गई, then I realized बहुत सारे Slice of Life titles है, तभी मैंने वो subtitle उसका किया था. So that is the thing, to make it unique. So Twisted Tales and Turns कोई title नहीं था, and it was going with the theme of my book anyway. तो पहले मैं सोच रही थी सबटाइटल में रखूं, but then I moved it from the subtitle to the title so that the title becomes unique. And I put in a subtitle just for the safety sake कि जब तक मेरी publish हुई किसी और ने निकाल दिया तो ये subtitle निकाल देते, because जब title सोचा नहीं था ना actually कि कब होगा, publisher has his own calendar. दिस इज अ बुक जहाँ ओके जो टाइटल मैंने सोचा पब्लिशर ने भी वही किया, तो टाइटल में चेंज नहीं हुआ, तो वन ऑफ दोज तो ये मेरा वर्किंग टाइटल था एंड दैट वेंट अहेड विद द फाइनल टाइटल, बट दैट वाज माय रीजन, Amazon search and to make the book stand out on its own before it got published.
Right. That's excellent advice, because yes, I agree. You type certain words in Amazon and other books come along, and if you have a very unique title, only yours or probably a couple of others will show on the list. So that's very, very insightful. Yes, Abhi, for all my novels, I'm going to do this. Thank you for this.
हाँ प्लीज, आई मीन ये करना ही पड़ेगा यार, अपनी तरफ से तो आप कोशिश करोगे ही ना, तो पुट योर बेस्ट फुट फॉरवर्ड, एंड आई थिंक दिस इज एन एसेंशियल स्टेप, क्या टाइटल होना चाहिए.
All right. Okay. So I am a very spontaneous writer like you, and what happens with me is that a lot of my experiences, a lot of my life events kind of leach into my story when I start writing, because I don't have a plot in mind, I don't have an end in mind, and I just write. So I'm sure it must happen with you as well. You are a life empowerment coach. You are coming across different people, different stories every single day. So how does that experience influence your writing? Or do you find that the reverse also happens, like your writing influences your real life? Does that happen ever?
Okay, see, that's an interesting question. First question is other people have also asked, but the second question, you are the first person who has asked. So as I said, you are exclusive. So let me take up that part first. So does writing influence my real life? Sometimes when I'm writing something and the character is fictional, and as I said, I really like to get into the head of my character. कुछ वो पॉइंट्स आते हैं, बिकॉज फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ आई एम राइटिंग अबाउट एन एथलीट and I myself am not an athlete, but because I am writing a story about him and I get into the head of the character, there are things you realize, okay, that more time needs to be spent in training than the actual result, or kaise hota hoga and how to find time to do that, even when you're not doing well, how to keep yourself motivated in training. ये सब वैसी चीज है, because in real life I don't do that. I would not appreciate those finer points. But because, I am doing this as a writer, I am more empathetic. So, in real life, if I had to come across a person who is very physically active and who is like, okay, जब तक मैं morning walk ना कर दूँ, मैं brush भी नहीं कर सकता. पहले मुझे लगता, maybe before I started writing, I would be like, ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है? But now I can really realize that ये होता है, okay? So that is the way I think it has, made me more empathetic as a person. Which anyway, as a coach, it is very essential in my profession. Even as a leader it was, but now I think I know people from different walks of life, even if I have not met them, courtesy my writing and the way that I really go into the skin of my characters. That is one. Second, I really realize that consistency के results होते हैं. Like जब मैंने writing start की थी, मेरा बस यही था रोज कुछ लिखना है. And now it has got me to a stage where I'm doing in less than a year, I'm doing the second Pen Connect with you, Monica. And all that because of that one small step, which is actually a big step, ki roz kuch likho. So consistency gave results. And that is the learning I've taken to other parts of my life. Okay, so there are some new things that I'm trying. There are some new things that I'm doing beyond my comfort zone. And when I'm like, कैसे होगा? And then I look at my own example है, consistency से 3 book आ गए 2 साल में. So, यहाँ भी consistency रखो, start small and see where it leads to. So, it is something अगर मैं वो writing में नहीं होता, I'm sure कि ये बाकी life के aspects में भी नहीं आता. With your coming to your first question, does real life seep into my writing? Yes, it does. See, every writer, gets influenced by someone. या तो आप कुछ पढ़ोगे वो आपको इन्फ्लुएंस करेगा, या आप कुछ सुनोगे आपको इन्फ्लुएंस करेगा through something, and that influences you. So it comes up in my thing as well, especially अब spontaneous हूँ. मैंने actually historical fiction भी लिखा है. That is the only part जहाँ आपको research करनी पड़ती है, because you have stayed true to that era. नहीं तो बाकी तो or a science fiction, if you're looking about like जो story थी guided missiles, misguided man. So that was the men. That was about military fiction. So I had to research on some points. But those were exceptions because of the genre जहाँ कुछ research करना पड़ा. But otherwise fiction is more about creativity. Creativity real life से तो कई inspiration आती ही है. So कहीं ना कहीं. So I think even in the novel, some part of your real life really creeps through, either in the character or in the setting or in some of the dialogues. Okay, and I think that is true of all writers. I am not an exception and all. Extent different hoga, but I don't think if it is possible कि बिल्कुल भी ना आए.
Oh yes, it is not possible.
I don't think it is. कोई है तो मैं उसे lesson लूंगी. To learn that. क्या पता अगर ऐसा कुछ lesson हो, कुछ दूसरी तरह की stories है. But yeah, real life does creep in. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. वो होता ही है. Like even if you go by the normal lessons that writers teach us, that you have to be objective about your characters and everything. कहीं ना कहीं a little bit of yourself and your own experiences just kind of seep into your writing, and I think that is what makes your writing more unique, because you are the only person who knows your life. You are the only person who knows your experiences. So I think it's a good thing in a way.
And you know what? Now that you asked me this question, शुरू में when I started writing 2 years ago, तब तो पता भी नहीं था क्या लिखूं. I started with this कि ठीक है, एक real life लेती हूँ, देखती हूँ उसे कैसे fictionalize करूं. In fact, that article, if you have seen like my Facebook post, last month there was an article which got published in the US-based WoW, 5 techniques of daily writing if you don't know what to write. वहाँ वो daily techniques ही ऐसे थे, and where I have actually given links to my real stories that is available in platform. कि इस story का as in this is the premise. For example, look outside the window and describe the scene जो window के बाहर हो रहा है, and start building the story with the scene. And I've given an example. वो कौन सी story थी जिसमें मैंने ये technique use किया था. So in fact, the entire routine of daily writing when I started, पहले 3 महीने तो मैंने बस कुछ रियल लाइफ लिया और देखा कि उसमें मैं क्या तड़का लगाऊं, so that so yeah.
Yeah, true. I have also done that. I'll look out the window and describe the scene. When I was short for ideas, I did that. I looked out of the window.
So yeah.
All right, we have another question. What is your writing routine when you are working on a book?
Okay, so so far my writing routine for a book, basically I dedicate a particular block of time which is planned well in advance given my schedule. कि first draft मुझे इस time करनी है. So for example, if I have to talk about Twisted Tales and Turns, when I decided in October last year कि short story collection लानी है, so I was like ठीक है, January में I will decide on the theme. By February I would have a broad idea किस तरह की stories आनी चाहिए, so that I know कौन सी already है और कौन सा बाकी given with the theme लिखना है. And once that was done, I was like March में मुझे ये book draft करके edit करके खत्म करना है, beta readers को देना है. So that was my time allocated, and for the entire March जो मैं सुबह उठ के लिखती हूँ, my daily writing was only this book और मैंने कुछ नहीं लिखा. So that is my thing. So I give 1 or max 2 months of time at a stretch for that writing that first draft. एक बार first draft हो जाए, then I give it some space, so that not in short story collection but novel में मैं ये करती हूँ कि first draft लिखा, then at least give it 3 months before you come to that editing part again. But even for novel, and some of you know that like last year's Telethon where I participated, वो first draft पूरा वही August के time में आया. एंड वो मेरा
Right.
पहले से डिसाइडेड था व्हेन आई डिसाइडेड ओके जुलाई में कि टेलीथॉन में करूं, बिकॉज इट वाज नॉट मच ऑफ अ चैलेंज, क्योंकि मैं डेली वैसे भी आई मीन मंथ में मैं अपना लिख ही लेती हूँ जो टेलीथॉन का
हाँ
चैलेंज है. बट देन आई एम
हाँ
लाइक ओके व्हाई नॉट नोवेला पिक करो और एक्चुअली नॉवेल लिख लो और फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट पूरा कंप्लीट कर दो. एंड इट
हाँ.
एक्चुअली टर्न्ड आउट कि फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट कंप्लीट हो गया उस टाइम. एंड
Right.
देन अगेन जब मैंने फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट लिखा था आई डिसाइडेड कि बाकी साल में टाइम नहीं है एंड आई वांटेड टू गिव इट सम गैप. सो मेरा पहले से डिसाइडेड था 2023 जब टेलीथॉन आएगा मैं पार्टिसिपेट नहीं करूंगी, क्योंकि मैं ये ड्राफ्ट एडिट करूंगी.
हाँ.
And which is what I did. So that draft was edited like 4-5 times. But again वो block of time था, तो मेरा पूरा जुलाई एंड अगस्त, इनफैक्ट मैंने इस वाले को ज्यादा टाइम दिया. आई डिडंट डू एनीथिंग एल्स बट फोकस्ड ओनली ऑन एडिटिंग दैट ड्राफ्ट जो मैंने लास्ट ईयर लिखा था. सो दिस इज माय
Right.
प्रोसेस व्हेन आई एम वर्किंग ऑन अ बुक. फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट जल्दी से जल्दी खत्म करो, डेडिकेटेड टाइम देके खत्म करो.
Right, right, right. This actually kind of makes sense, because this is exactly what I did this year. इससे पहले I was very very unplanned and कुछ भी कभी भी हो रहा है. But this year I decided in January that I will write in August. I will complete the first draft of my novel in August. And January में decide करके I just kept thinking about it and let it
Yes,
fresh out in my mind. And August I didn't do anything else but write. So yes, this
exactly.
this is, you have to plan it. You have to put that block of time aside, that okay, this is the time when you're going to write it.
Huh.
Absolutely.
And once you plan, you adhere to it basically, despite all the
Yes.
distraction. Because for me, okay, when I planned कि August में मैं ये करूँगी, as in my next work, मुझे तब नहीं पता था Twisted Tales and Turns जुलाई में आ जाएगी, because I never expected the process to
Right.
be short, going by my past experience कि मैं भेजूंगी तुरंत होके आ जाएगा, फिर तुरंत निकल जाएगा, फिर वो जुलाई में ही निकल जाएगा. It came as a surprise when Readomania told me hey, the book is out, because I was expecting वो August में ही कभी आए. Then I got
Right.
distracted with promotions of TT&T. And but still it was like मेरा plan था कि August देना. In fact I'm like और भी अच्छा है, because अगर मैं सोचती book अच्छा कर रही है कि नहीं, I would have thought too much. So let me focus next book. That was my strategy, and which kept me sane. So I didn't bother about the as in I was looking at the reviews, but I didn't let myself be swayed by it, either positive or negative, because I was too much already into my next work. But I was
Right.
like, ठीक है, कोई भी distraction हो, कुछ भी हो, जो भी है, अगर जुलाई and August मैंने इसके लिए dedicate किया है, मुझे ये करना ही करना है, irrespective of the distractions.
Right, right, absolutely. And that is very, 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 very important advice to everybody who is here and who will watch it. Be consistent and stick to your plans. At least writing plans. बाकी plans नहीं stick किया तो चलेगा. It's okay. Writing plans, stick to them. All right, one last question before we wrap up, Smita. I know you're tired. How many rounds of editing is required before the final draft is ready? Is it necessary to get it edited by another writer?
Okay, so see how many rounds of editing is required. It's a very personal call. Okay, because every writer has his own process. For example, Jeffrey Archer, and I keep on giving his example because he's my favorite writer and I follow him very closely. वो publisher को he does not send a book unless 15 drafts नहीं हो जाते. And it is
Right.
actually all the more challenging because he writes on pen and paper, not even like, software. So I imagine the efforts he puts out. But that is for him. On the other hand, there are writers who, 3-4 में they are satisfied. So I belong to the later category. See, कोई चीज perfect नहीं हो सकती. There is a
Absolutely.
limit. अभी भी मैं TT&T उठाऊंगी, मेरे को कुछ areas of improvement लगता है, and that is always going to be there no matter how well your book is doing. The thing is, आप करते रहो till the point you're satisfied. कभी आपको लगे अच्छा और मैं क्या करूं, इसमें कुछ नहीं हो सकता. That is the time you send it to the beta reader. Okay.
Right.
So आपने मेरा था usually मेरा है कि first draft लिखा, then 2 rounds of edit, then I send it to the beta readers, and then फिर beta reader से feedback आता है. तब तक anyway आपको और improvement area खुद में ही लगता है. Then you do another 2 rounds where you do beta reader का feedback incorporation and the other things that you have said. So 4 to 5, that is my point. Beyond that, agar main kar rahi hu, I know, but that is my personal standard. I know I am doing a overthink because
Right.
because it will go to the publisher also, right? तो वहाँ भी edit
Mhm.
करेंगे, वहाँ से भी inputs
Mhm.
आएंगे, so it's ongoing process है जब तक book निकल नहीं जाती. Uh,
Right.
is it necessary to get it edited by another? Absolutely yes. Now here the thing is, again, मैंने short story collection अपने दोनों edit नहीं करा है. It is self editing, but the fact is most of the stories were published, so I knew the feedback. क्या अच्छी लगी, क्या नहीं अच्छी लगी. And now
Right.
we have softwares like Grammarly and all, so you know बहुत जल्दी जल्दी आपका वो basic grammar errors तो correct हो ही जाता है. Okay.
Mhm.
And see, anyway, if you send the book to your traditional publisher, उनके editor edit करेंगे ही, तो वो आपका edit होगा ही. No good publisher will put your book out there without, you know, so यहाँ भी editing process हुआ है, तो वो automatically हो गया. But for a price to love, yes, I did get it edited by someone. पहले तो मुझे पता भी नहीं था a publisher will accept it or not, and I didn't want कि अगर self publish हो वो errors के पास साथ जाए. And then I realized when it went for editing कि जो points editors ने निकाले वो मैं नहीं निकाल सकती थी because I was too attached to my work. It is
Right.
only when a third person sees it, he or she will see it from a different perspective. And I'm not
Right.
talking about punctuation, grammar, वो तो ठीक है, Grammarly भी कर लेगा, अच्छे से कर लेगा. But it's
Right.
more
Right.
about, okay, ये sentence यहाँ नहीं जम रहा, this dialogue is seeming unnatural. Hey, इससे पहले तो ये लिखा था, now the person is saying this, you know, it is
Right.
not making sense. And these are things you will not be able to do because you are the person who has written it, right? So you're close
Right.
to it.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
you know, अपना बच्चे सभी को अच्छे लगेंगे. It's only a parent teacher meeting में जाते हैं और teachers feedback देंगे तब आपको पता चलेगा कि क्या है. It's the same thing here. And if you know some of the audience here are mothers and even fathers for that matter, they will understand what I'm talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, definitely. Matlab, I think the only thing that you need to keep in mind is don't overdo it.
Yes.
You have to stop it at some point that, okay, you are not able to add value to your manuscript now. Send it to beta readers, send it to editors, send it to Penmancy. We'll edit your manuscripts. We'll edit it fantastically. So, yes. All right, Smita, we will wrap up this session. I will ask you one last question.
No,
What?
let me ask you a question, Monica, and I'm sorry to interrupt you again. क्योंकि आप wrap up कर रहे हो. So, you have read this book, okay, and you have already said I loved it, and I thank you for that. I take it as a genuine feedback. Uh, since you also call yourself a fan of my work, as a fan, give me one sincere, honest advice. I think you have read all of my books. At least you have read A Price to Love. You have read this.
Yes.
If you know, you are to tell me, hey, Smita, this is one area that you need to improve as a writer, so that the next set of books do even better. What would
Right.
that one area be?
All right. I have an answer for this. I'm so happy. Okay. So, from one like honest feedback as a reader and a writer, feedback would be, when you're trying to convey a social message through a story or a book, whatever format you're choosing, when you're trying to convey a social message, try to keep it like minimalistic, because what happens is that I think when readers are reading these kind of stories where we have something to say, we want to convey awareness or create awareness, readers should not feel lectured to, right? They want to understand that thing, they are open to understanding what you're trying to say, but they should not feel lectured to. So I think that is one thing, especially in this book. I think there are so many social subjects that you have explored, right? Racism, feminism, neurodivergence, you have all of the other subjects that you have explored. So in that case, when there is not one, not two, but a lot of these subjects, in that case you need to kind of just hold back a little so that the reader does not feel overburden of social message, right?
Okay.
That is
Sure,
that is
got
the
it.
only, that is the only thing. And because there are a lot of subjects, when there is only one, you can go as much as possible, because there is only one message that you're trying to convey, so you can convey it in many different ways. When there are a lot of subjects, readers tend to get confused कि okay ये बोल रहे हैं या ये बोल रहे हैं, और readers tend to say कि okay, enough, I don't want to read it anymore. So we know how flighty readers are. So so I think when we
Yes.
tackle a lot of things at once, that is what I would do as a writer, that I would just hold back a little and let the readers get to the message, right?
Okay. Can I ask a follow-on question? In this
Yes, yes.
particular book, is there a particular, like, there are 4 sections. Is there one particular section where, as a reader, you felt ki, hey, this feedback that you gave me,
Right.
it was more applicable? Was there one such particular section where you felt so?
There is not a section in particular, because there are stories in every section that I absolutely loved. And science fiction, as I already told you, I loved, because I have very rarely seen Indian writers experiment with science fiction, and you've done a fantastic job with science fiction. So I have no issues with science fiction, but there are a couple of stories, I think, not a particular section as such. No.
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
I will answer your question in the review that I will write. So I'll have like a detailed pointer to make. But yes, a couple of stories, but no particular section. No, nothing like that.
Okay, thanks, Monica. And before you wrap up, okay, to the audience which is here, thank you for being here, and you have come here because you're associated with Penmancy. For that particular reason, I would really urge, if for those who haven't picked it up, to pick the book A Twisted Tales and
Yes.
Turns. Of course, some of you will get it, as part of attempting the QT and fusion prompts. But for the rest, do pick it up. The reason is, like, as I said, some quite a lot of stories are published. If you look at it, 50% of the stories have been published on this particular platform. And
Yes.
as I say, Penmancy has played a part in my writing journey. So, and when you pick this up, you will see how, this is what the power of a platform does. You write one story, you get a feedback, and then that story develops into something else and leads to a book. Plus it leads to more stories that that go on to win international awards and national awards. So, for
Right.
that particular reason, for the association with Penmancy, do, give Twisted Tales and Turns a read.
Absolutely. And it is such an entertaining thing, like in Purchased Love. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. Smita, Purchased Love and Kaleidoscope. Then Masterpiece, obviously, top of the world. There were so many stories. Like when I came to the end, I felt like so elated with the twist. Like, yes, yes, this has happened.
Thanks, Monica. Thank you so much, and always a pleasure to interact with you. So, मेरे को तो लगा ही नहीं that we are live, and and it was just like an honest chat with a friend, as it is. So, I enjoyed our interaction, despite it being a very long day. As I told you, like
Oh,
before I
yes.
joined, I've been speaking since 10 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, and now you need to go rest your throat. Thank you, Smita, for coming here, giving us so many insights about short stories, about your book, about so many things related to short stories. I'm sure all the writers over here are mighty pleased with this session, as am I. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for writing this book. It is superb. I loved it. And no, let nobody tell you that science fiction is not good. It is fantastic. Okay.
Thank
Even
you, Monica.
if I am the only person who is going to tell you that science fiction section is fantastic, let it be. That think that you have written it for me.
No, so international audience, I mean, people who are there abroad, they have come and told me this session is fantastic. But you are the first person in India who is telling me so. And I saw another comment by Natasha here in this section that Smita
Yes,
writes
yes.
really fabulous science fiction. So thank you, Natasha. Thank you for that.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining in, for asking questions, for engaging with us in a lively manner. Thank you so much. Thank you, Smita.
Bye bye.